Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to be talking about how some societies existed before colonialism. What structures exist so prevalently in today's society and dictate how we live today that didn't exist in quite the same way it did before. We're going to be talking about gender and queerness in pre-colonial societies. Now, there does exist a pre-colonial society where there was some form of a strict sexual dualism. However, this was weakened by both Igbo culture and language. And one of these roles was the male daughter, where if a father hadn't left many or even any sons, then a daughter would stay in the compound and take on the surname, and thus ensure the protection of the lineage. Now, many women also held positions of power in the Igbo society and had their own political societies that ensured the safeguarding of women and protection. One of the rules being that you couldn't have sexual intercourse with a nursing mother, and they also maintained a 2-year spacing out between children as well. And so when the British arrived in Nigeria in the 1800s, this power slowly eroded. Women in power was a foreign concept, especially to colonizers, and so in the depth of colonialism was brought a rigid sexual dualism and patriarchal concepts of gender, and these women's roles slowly disappeared as Britain's rule continued. Slowly but surely, colonizers marginalized Igbo women, and while the previous framework had been no utopia, there was definitely a reduction in the rights and the authorities that Igbo women had. Now, in June last year, 2019, Botswana overturned colonial-era laws which criminalized homosexuality, with the judge, Michael Reroot, stating that anti-sodomy laws were a British import and they were placed without the consultation of local people. And this is true for many societies, with pre-colonial African societies way back in 2400 BC accepting same-sex relationships. As far back as 2400 BC, tombs have been excavated to show male lovers, Nyantnum and Namotep, embracing each other, and same-sex relationships weren't the only thing that were accepted in ancient Egypt civilization. A third gender was recognized, acknowledged, and also venerated, and many of their deities were portrayed as androgynous. Mut, the goddess of motherhood, and Sekhmet, the goddess of war, are portrayed as tall women with erect penises. And this isn't unique to Egypt or the time period that they're in. Now, in the 16th century, the Imbangala people of Angola had men who dressed in women's apparel with whom they kept amongst their wives. Meanwhile, in 1533, King Henry VIII had just signed the Buggery Act, criminalizing sex between two men, and the last man sentenced to death by hanging in England was in 1835, and this was because these men had engaged in homosexual sex. Meanwhile, in the 18th century, there was a sexually fluid monarch, King Mwanga II of Uganda, who was ruling the country. King Mwanga actively opposed Christianity and colonialism. Homophobia was legally enforced by colonial administrators as well as Christian missionaries, and anti-LGBT laws have not only been written into the constitutions but into the minds of African people and the people across the diaspora. So next time we think about the intersections between queerness and blackness, and between blackness and gender, I want us to take a look at it through a pre-colonial lens. What factors played into the way queerness and gender is viewed now in black culture and in black societies? Who had a role to play in this? And what can we do to change it? Thanks for tuning in and listening. I'll see you next video.